gentlemen, Christian Hanna Horror here with another Roundtable review. We've got everybody. We've got Tommy McDaniel back in here, and we've got Kaylin, the local horror fan. You guys need to realize something. This is going to be the last time we talk about this movie formally before there's a remake, and it's crazy to think, man. You know, and I'm indifferent about it. You know, I'm hopeful because look, it's happening, it's inevitable. I want a good movie, and we're gonna touch on that later in this video. But I want to really dive into Child's Play 1988, just one of the greatest and most legendary horror characters ever. Kaylin, opening thoughts. Tell me your first instance of the movie. What was the first time you saw the movie and the effect it had on you?
All right, I think probably was when I was younger, going to Blockbuster, going through the horror aisle, and of course just picking based on the cover of the movie. I mean, that's sort of how we did it back then, pre-internet. Yeah. And Child's Play was one of those that I think I just grabbed on a weekend and it scared me. I can't say I've been the biggest fans of some of the newer ones, but certainly the first three Child's Play movies. Classic, yeah.
I was 8 years old when the movie came out. One day I'm watching TV and I see this commercial for this thing, this My Buddy doll. And I'm like, that's what I want for Christmas. And I don't know if you guys remember that, the My Buddy.
Yeah, and Kid's sister.
Exactly. So I was like, that's going to be my Christmas present. And I swear, later on that day, I see the trailer for Child's Play. And I was like, nope. Maybe I'll just stick with Nintendo.
and do you remember, Tommy, what was that trailer? What did they give away in that? If you can remember, that initial trailer, was it as blatant as... They didn't just show a talking doll in the trailer, I'm sure,
I really
right?
couldn't tell you, man. I don't remember. I just remember I saw enough to know that I didn't want any kind of doll, and yeah.
So the trailer alone struck a chord, right?
I was 8 years old, so you know what I mean? So it definitely did the job.
This was definitely a highly untapped market in terms of cinema to the level of this, because there was a movie Charles Band put out called Dolls, but it didn't really reach the market very well. You know, the movie's okay, but we're not going to talk about the movie that much in this video, but it just like there wasn't that identifiable animated doll yet, in a sense.
I feel like Child's Play set the standard.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
My first instance with Chucky, I'm younger than you guys. My thing, it kind of had the Freddy effect. I had not seen a Freddy movie, but everybody was like, oh, Chucky doll. It was the same with Freddy. Of course, I knew Freddy before I'd seen any movie. And my grandma, of all people, she's number one, a massive Stephen King fan. And we would watch It, which I believe It is my very first horror movie. Wow. Just, good Lord, I literally just couldn't sleep. I would lay in me and Trey had bunk beds, my brother, and I would beg to be in the top bunk because Chucky would be under the bottom bunk, and just struck fear in me. And I saw the first one. Unlike a lot of horror movie franchises, I typically see a part 2 or part 3 first, but this was the one time I saw part 1 first, and I never really saw the sequels till probably years later, maybe 5 or 6 years later as I got older. But that first film, none of them affected me the way the first film did, and we're going to get into that. And I give the credit of the emotional distraught to what Tom Holland did with the movie. So let's open this up here. So Don Mancini writes this story, and it's called Blood Buddies. It's not called Child's Play. And the basic premise, to keep it simple, was this young boy had a troubled childhood, and I believe he cuts a hole in the doll and cuts his hand and is supposed to put blood into the doll. And that is supposed to animate the doll. I'm one of those people, and you guys give me your take on this. I'm not a fan of that whatsoever. It sounds extremely hokey to me. I'm not going to say voodoo is the most, mainstream thing in the world, but what do you guys think? Are you happy that Tom Holland came in and said, okay, Don, I appreciate this. I'm a veteran. I know what I'm doing. Let me get my hands on this script. Tommy.
Yeah. And also, I think that I heard somewhere that it was all supposed to be the little boy, kind of his own, like, almost like the doll wasn't involved at all. You just don't know if it's him or the doll, but it ends up being him. That may have been something he never actually wrote down, just an idea he had. And what would they have done? There could be no sequels if that was the case.
Totally interesting.
But definitely the way they did it, I think, and maybe it's just because that's what I know, but yeah, I think that worked.
Kaylin, what do you think? Do you think you'd like to see a Blood Buddies version of the movie or no?
I don't know. The way that they did it in the movie was always a little awkward to me as well. Just him transferring his soul into the doll through voodoo. But here, living in Louisiana, we hear about voodoo, so that's something.
That's another thing too that you got to keep in mind. Growing up in New Orleans myself,
Yeah.
With me, I almost, it's funny because I've had this discussion before where I said to myself, maybe it would have been even cooler had they not shown Brad Dourif's character, Charles Lee Ray, doing the spell in the movie. And it would have been more of a question of, is Andy doing this or is this doll really animated?
Right.
But, I think back to my first impression of the movie, and I don't think that scene really affected me in a negative way because it's not like they show him talk inside the doll right after the scene cuts, so it's still kind of like what's going on, because it's like, is this guy, you gotta go back and remember your first time watch this movie, you gotta be saying to yourself, is this guy nuts? Is he trying to do voodoo on, like, what's wrong with this guy?
And I wonder if they knew, okay, this is going to be a sequel, this is going to be a franchise for us, and so they wanted Chucky to be prominent throughout the whole movie and for people to know that this is the doll that's doing this. You know what I mean? It's like they knew what they had just from the get-go, and maybe that was the situation.
So the next thing we'll bring up with this movie is, one of the most favorited child actors in horror movie history is Danielle Harris as Jamie in Halloween. They love her. And it almost seems like Alex Vincent, who is Andy, kind of almost takes a second place to Danielle, maybe rightfully so. I'm not going to decide that here, but going back, watching the first Child's Play, this kid's performance is phenomenal. And I wonder, I'm a Tom Holland mark, but I give so much credit to Tom for being able to work with this kid. And I wonder how hard it is working with children and to get the performance, because it's a totally different dynamic between Danielle's Jamie and Alex. Alex is much more of a kid, just not as aware, he's very much more immature, but in the natural sense, not in a bad way. Totally different performance, and I think it's brilliant. It's one of the most convincing performances of a kid, Tommy, I've ever seen.
Yeah, no doubt. I think he did a great job. Like you said, he was a real kid. He was kind of the hero at the end because, he sets Chucky on fire, but he's still a kid the whole time, and he's not unrealistic in being the hero as far as doing something that you'd like a kid would never do that. And he even his mom has to snap him back in at the end to come and get the match and light it because he's frozen with fear.
Right. And that's another thing, Kayla, in the movie, it's like it still takes a natural transition, like Tommy's saying, when Andy has to fight back. I mean, he's well aware now and once the mom finds out that when the great scene when the batteries fall out of Chucky, and then the mom realizes, oh my God, my son is not losing his mind. Even to that point, Andy's performance, it's so natural. The way he has to go after Chucky, it's so much fear, it's so much reserve in him. It's not, Jamie Lee Curtis's H2O.
Alex, if you're watching this, you did a great job, and we're all big fans.
But
the first movie, to me, it was a little more on the psychological end, because you're setting up the character. What is Chucky? Who is this doll? And in the first part of the movie, you're really just working on the doll with no animations, no speech. You sort of know something's up, and the characters, they're the main characters, they're not. They don't know yet. So I feel like the acting on Alex's part was so good because he wasn't working off a reaction of, say, like the beginning of Child's Play 2, where you've just got this horrific looking Chucky. He's pretty much creating this tension, working with a My Buddy doll.
Right.
Absolutely. And that's a great transition to the next thing I want to bring up. Tommy, play off of this, because I mean this. Child's Play is not a slasher movie. Child's Play is an atmospheric suspense horror movie. And I gotta say, Tom Holland is not a slasher movie director. Tom Holland is all about atmosphere, building up suspense in the story. The whole movie is this roller coaster where it's just going up slowly. And once those batteries fall out, that's when the roller coaster starts to go down. And that's another trend. The build-up is close to what happens in Fright Night, how the whole movie is just no one's believing that these guys are vampires, and then once they find out, I mean, it's balls to the wall. And it's really the same thing with Child's Play. And I say that to people. I was like, you got to go back and watch that first Child's Play, and then Child's Play 2, which is brilliant, is all right, is a slasher movie, 100%. Yeah. It's all about the scenes with the kills, getting a reaction from the kills, but the first movie is just leaning back in your seat a little bit like, is this doll real? It's not a slasher movie to me, Tommy.
I mean, I think it has elements, but yeah, it's just not just straight up a slasher movie. But yeah, I definitely agree that, and when you see that a lot as time moves on, you see when they realize they have a franchise and they want to make it a little more palatable, they'll do things like that with the sequels, or they'll make it like in the case of Nightmare on Elm Street where it's funnier or whatever. But yeah, I definitely can see what you're saying. I've never really thought about that one way or the other, but I can definitely see what you're saying.
The characters in this movie are just great, with the element of Andy's mom, the detective, which Tommy, we were talking about the gentleman's name again.
Chris Sarandon.
And he is like, actors usually go along with directors. If a director has a great relationship with said actor, they'll bring him back. And we know Chris from Fright Night, who was probably one of the most seductive, crazy vampires we've ever seen. Brilliant. And so he was, and that just goes to show you the level of acting this guy can do. He can character act like nobody's business because he plays the most realistic detective. Once Chucky gets caught on fire, they built a 30% larger set, and they got a little person dressed up as Chucky, and I didn't realize that. It just done flawlessly, and I never questioned it because, when a scene looks that good, you don't question it. You see what's going on, and you say, oh, Chucky's running around burning. But the fact that they built a set, like, how do they get furniture that's 30%? Right. It's just, where do you get furniture that's 30% bigger? And, but then that's how they did. And they got this little person to play this part, and it looks perfect. CGI can't do it.
And I don't know about that scene, but some of the scenes where they had a little person instead of, animatronic or whatever, it was actually the kid that played Isaac in Children of the Corn was in some of those scenes.
Interesting. I never knew that either.
But something I just found out recently, but yeah, I thought that was, I don't know, I'm sure it was probably a stunt man with, where he's on fire, but some of the other scenes.
Child's Play 1 and 2, it's crazy how different they are. The first one is, it's funny, the first Child's Play theme song sounds like Children of the Corn or something. It's very voice-oriented and piano-oriented. Then the second one sounds like the Jack in the Box from Hell. So it's crazy how different, but it works for both movies. It's crazy how different they are, but they perfectly execute the type of movie they're trying to be. And that's another reason I don't see Child's Play as being so much of a slasher movie. It's so atmospheric, especially because of the music. The music's brilliant.
The first three movies, definitely just atmospheric, horrific. I think if you grew up kind of watching the Child's Play movie in the first three, you sort of stuck around and bared with the ones that have come out recently. I guess Cult of Chucky.
People will kill me if I do not bring up Brad Dourif.
Yeah, I was about to
Tommy,
say.
go ahead.
One of the most frightening men ever. You were talking about Tom Noonan, and this guy's definitely on that list for this movie and for Exorcist 3. But he's as big a part of Chucky as Robert Englund is to Freddy. I mean, that's how important he is. That voice, and I mean, he just nailed it. He was perfect. And that, when you talk about you didn't have a killer doll that stood out, you didn't have Brad Dourif doing the voice, and I think that is what changed it and made it so memorable.
I'll get you guys to give me your quick thoughts on both the TV show and the remake, and I'll go first because I've said this before, and I'll keep it short and simple. I want both to succeed. I want both to succeed. I don't like to see... For me to want something to fail is ridiculous. Why would you want something to fail? It's kind of pretentious. But here's where I'm at. And I've said this a million times, and I don't know that people really believe me. Don Mancini was on the Postmortem podcast, which is hosted by Mick Garris, great director. Mm-hmm. He said he's interested in bringing back characters throughout his sequels, including characters like Glenn or Glenda, whatever you want to call it. That's fine. It doesn't exactly excite me. I've also had people tell me, "Well, check out this article because it says that it's gonna be spooky and scary like the first three." I'll believe that when I see it. You tell me anything I'm gonna watch in this year is gonna really scare. You tell me the remake is gonna scare me. You tell me a TV show on Sci-Fi is gonna scare me, Tommy. A TV show on Sci-Fi. I don't care what it's called. You tell me it's gonna scare me. I mean, I'm coming at it with a sense of harsh realism. With that being said, I think it can be great. I definitely worry about what happened with Ash vs. Evil Dead. This is not exactly the same because this is syndicated television. This is cable. So that's a different animal, you know. Sci-Fi, I appreciate and I applaud them saying, we'll take this. We'll be the renegades that put horror on TV. That's awesome. That's great. I think Scream did okay. It did 3 seasons. That's actually, in today's market, 3 seasons is incredible. I mean, it really is to be on television. So I hope it succeeds. I hope it's good. I hope people enjoy it. I'm more so excited for this remake because Don reeled me in with Curse of Chucky. Thought it was fabulous. Reeled me out with Cult of Chucky. Initial watch, brilliant. I thought it was a great film. I thought it was beautiful, stunning. He's such a good director. I give him all the credit in the world. Not interested in seeing multiple Chuckies at once. I just think it's too much for me.
For me, I think the remake's going to be more important. I think that it will reach a wider audience, and if the remake is what I hope it is, and it holds up, I think people will naturally gravitate to watching the show.
Right.
I don't know necessarily if people will get into the show on Sci-Fi and they'd be like, well, maybe we should give the movie a chance. I definitely think the movie's going to reach a lot more people, and I hope it does well. It's a franchise that I've always enjoyed, always loved. Long live Chucky. So I wish it the best, and I know I'll be there watching it.
There's no reason to have to pick a side because this movie's coming out in 2019. This show's not coming out till 2020. Right. Enjoy both. I don't want, that's the thing. There is no you have to like this, you have to like this. But I digress. Tommy, let's finish this up with you.
I think the show is for the Chucky fans, the longtime Chucky fans, and you're probably not going to get people who aren't longtime Chucky fans. The remake is, I won't say it's not for those people, because it is. It's for everybody, but they want to restart a franchise with new fans, and I think that's what it's about. And I think they're doing a great job. I think a lot of people didn't really like the idea of the Wi-Fi and, Chucky's ability to control it, but I think that's perfect for for people these days, because there's so much of that in our lives. Everything is controlled by, electronics and Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, and so I think they know what they're doing. And I think it's going to be good. It and a couple other movies have really just blown me away at how well, you're starting to see companies say, hey, these remakes, they can't just be cash grabs. They have to be good, and that's what's happening. So, I don't know. I think it's going to be good, and we'll see what happens.
So, it's interesting you said that, Tommy, because would you agree with me then that maybe the word remake isn't such a dirty word anymore?
Right.
This is Christian, the local horror fan, Kaylin, and Tommy McDaniel, and we will see you guys next time.